So listen, I just have to say again how he's somebody that I want to have over for a barbecue. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Just totally comfortable talk, just shooting the breeze.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's a Star Wars fan and best-selling Star Wars author, you just got to love that.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
And he brought up so many good things, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Just the process.
Yeah.
You know, and that's actually one of the more interesting things to me about these writers that we have on is how do you come at this? And he even talked to, you know, about how his editor was helping Rinsler, like who's done all the making of books, who's like incredible.
Yeah.
And just some of the comments that he had on his work. And, and I was fascinated endlessly by just his creative process and how he approached it. And then obviously talking about, well, what about these new characters?
Right.
And the mention of maybe a grandpa book. I love that.
Yes.
And so, you know, just I really appreciated just as down to earth, you know, kind of way about him.
Yep.
And also just his generosity to take the time. These guys are really busy.
Yep.
And you know, we've had so many wonderful guests on the show over the months that we've been doing this. And the fact that they'll take time to talk. Yeah. Not only about their work, but just time is valuable. And we know this as educators and as parents and husbands. And so just to have that time with Jeffrey Brown, it was a real blessing to the show. And so thank you, Jeffrey. And great interview, Devin, man. That was good stuff.
Well, he made it easy. I just asked a question and let him talk.
Like sit back.
Yeah. But here's one of the things that struck, there were a lot of things that struck me coming out of that conversation that really kind of made me process things. But one of the things, I literally remember writing it down as he said it. Yeah. And it was so, I think, eye-opening. And so this is basically what he says. I had to take a step back from Star Wars to keep my fandom intact.
Wow.
And I thought one that was like so noble and transparent of him to say that as someone who gets paid to produce Star Wars books.
Yeah.
But for me, it also kind of like affirmed this like hidden secret that I've had. Like there are times when I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I think I just take a break from Star Wars, whether it was a podcast or just like reading more books or whatever else. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And not only did he say it in such a tone like he wanted so badly, I guess the way to put it, to preserve his fandom. It means that much to him that he was wise enough to like push back when it was time to just make sure that nothing was going to negatively impact that. And I just, it just impacted me so greatly. Yeah. And so it really caused me to think like, when is it time to take a break? Yeah. Whether it's from Star Wars or something else that you adore and are passionate about. And since we're a Star Wars podcast, we'll obviously say, when is it time to take a break from Star Wars? But I think that there is so much wisdom in what he had to say. So I did a little searching around on the interwebs.
Oh.
Yep, it's true. And I went to our good friends at Psychology Today.
Well, they're good friends.
They are good friends. They don't have their own Jedi scavenger like we do.
They don't.
But they're good friends.
Yeah, they're falling short.
So I came across some articles, and here were some of the things that I was just searching for keywords and phrases. And so I was searching for things like stress management, take a break. I even searched like depression, anything that would kind of be in the peripheral of why someone would want to take a break. I searched actually for fandom, and there was literally like pages and pages and pages about fandom, which I'm going to say we probably go back to at some point. Yeah. There's some stuff there.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good times. So here are some things that stood out in my research, though. Yeah. Here's a quote from a Psychology Today article. Going without your favorite food or activity, or in this case, Star Wars, for a few weeks will help you savor it more. Finds a recent study in social, psychological, and personality science. And here's another quote by Jordi Koidbach, one of the scientists and authors of this study. We have to, and I love this term, Jeremy, re-virginize. Can we hashtag that?
Re-virginize?
Re-virginize. We're going to re-virginize ourselves.
Wow.
Sorry, I just had to picture that.
I don't want to picture that. All right, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to put that in future blaster points.
Oh, no.
He recommends a temporary deprivation strategy for reappreciating everything from chocolate to sex, or in our case, Star Wars. Oh, I know, right?
Oh, okay.
Listen, I'm going to go back to those 20th century prophets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Foreigner, it's never as good as the first time. Okay? He also says this.
Okay.
Wow. Interrupting a pleasurable activity, even for a minute or so, makes it more enjoyable. It jolts us out of adapting to the experience.
Wow.
New research indicates that if you consider yourself an expert at anything from fine dining to traveling, you will savor it less. And I thought that was interesting too.
Yikes.
That if you become such an expert at something, it's no longer that interesting or enjoyable.
That happened to me in grad school. Like the wheels are turning, man.
Right?
Like in grad school, I totally did that.
I was the same way.
I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I was the same way.
Wow.
And so it really caused the gears to start grinding and turning. And some of the things that I came out of that asking myself were this. What are some of the potential problems if we don't press pause with our fandom? What do you think? Is there, if we believe what these doctors' studies have indicated, and we take some insight from Jeffrey Brown, his pushing back, what are some potential problems if we don't pause our fandom?
Yeah, I think there's sort of an I wonder here. And and my I wonder is, I wonder, you're smiling, dude. I wonder if like it grows, it continues to grow if you don't push back. So let's take our fandom in Star Wars. Like, there's nothing wrong with your enjoyment of it growing, but let's say you refuse to take a break.
Right.
And step away, and it continues to take up more aspects of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the balances we're trying to strike with this. You know, we want to give time to our family, our job, our friends, you know, other things, you know. And I wonder if a danger is that it grows to the point where it starts to consume other areas of your life that are good and valuable.
I think that is really at the heart of this. One of my mentors, Dr. David Ekman, written several books, but one of the things that he says is, you know, anything and everything is addictive. And he talks about, you know, even if you are into exercising and you're working out, but you're working out so much and so often that you're actually neglecting relationships in order for you to get that endorphin rush, to get the body image that you want or whatever else. He goes, that is so unhealthy. Something that is actually healthy can be unhealthy, like you said, if it becomes obsessive or if it becomes the only thing that you're focused on.
Yeah, and so many things are good, right? You know, chocolate's good.
Yeah.
Food's good.
Right.
You know, Star Wars, good. You know, but there is this worry that I have sometimes of making it supreme.
Right.
The supreme thing in my life. And I think I would imagine some of our listeners, that might have become an issue where they love Star Wars so much that it starts to replace things that are probably a little more important. You know, there's a story that I've heard. I actually heard it. I've heard it several times, but I recently heard someone kind of relate it to me or relay it to me. Yeah. And it's about Ben Burtt, the sound designer for Star Wars, and E.T., and you name it. He's done everything. Yeah. I think he even did Star Trek 2 and, of course, The Force Awakens. Star Trek 2, Into Darkness. And just a great sound designer. I mean, so many iconic, you know, sounds have come out of his films. And when he won one of his Academy Awards, I'm not sure if it's the original one that he won for Star Wars in '77, but one of his wins, he was going out, and you know, when you win the Academy Award, you go celebrate. There's different parties. Vanity Fair has one. You know, different like. It's
kind of like when we won the Star Wars Podcast Awards last year.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, the after party was off the hook.
Yeah, I was hungover for days.
Woo!
Yeah. So,
man,
wow, Devin. I was going somewhere.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
Derailed me.
Yes, Jeremy, you were talking about winning something.
So, jeez. So Burtt went out to, after the parties and all that stuff, he went to go take his Academy Award and put it in the trunk of his car.
Right.
And I'm sure some of you that are listening, you've heard the story. It falls out of his hand, hits the ground, breaks into pieces. And he sort of had this moment, like this epiphany, where he's like, wow, this thing has become sort of like this golden idol in my life. Like all my life has been about the success and this moment, and I put everything into it, and I've sort of lost everything else. And I think it was in that moment, at least in the way I've heard this story told and from what I understand, is he sort of kind of reoriented his life. It doesn't mean he didn't like what he was doing. It didn't mean like he kind of put it back in its proper place.
Right. Balance.
Yeah, totally balance. And he then said that he enjoyed his job even more.
Wow.
And enjoyed what he was doing because it wasn't the the prime thing in his life. It wasn't the thing that was driving him over everything else. And I think with our fandom, I think there's that danger of it becoming so important. We'll neglect other things that frankly we don't need to be neglecting. And so I think these are some of the problems if you don't have moments where you maybe step away. I think in some cultures, even religions, they say, I need to fast from this thing. I need to kind of like take a break for a little while and just sort of reorient myself. And so I would imagine there's a few listeners that are kind of like, it's kind of hitting them where they're like, wow, I'm obsessing over this way too much.
And I just recommend that they take a break from every other podcast but ours.
And then review us on iTunes.
There you go.
Wow. We're sick and demented.
Wow.
All right. Yeah.
Well, but to like, I guess, dovetail into that is, one of the things that you'd mentioned as far as taking a break. And I think that that's one of the things as Star Wars fans that we often find ourselves, at least I'll confess, like I have often found myself, especially when we were trying to get this little thing called a podcast up and running this time last year, and having to put on the lenses of being a critic and an analyzer and a consumer of every news feed and aggregate and everything, just to quite frankly be able to tread water and hold a conversation. And like there have been times when fandom kind of waned a little bit. When it had to just come to, the production meetings or the marketing meetings or whatever else happens behind the scene. And I just think that going back to my conversation with Jeff, it was just so enlightening to hear it from somebody who's, quite frankly, he's been at the top. He is at the top.
He really is.
Right? I mean, he's an award-winning New York Times bestseller. And for him to be able to speak that truth was just like, it was awesome.
Yeah. And, so I guess where we go from here is, what do I do?
I think it's like one of those things you do is like you look at some of the warning signs of fatigue. Or where relationships may be dipping and looking at causes of that. And look, I'm not going to say that we're all so bonkers over Star Wars and it's going to actually like start, making revenue for divorce attorneys skyrocket or anything like that.
Sniffing cocaine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine what this podcast would be if we're doing that? Woo.
Top rated.
Wow. Sorry, I just had that flashback to Die Hard. But anyway.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Hans Bube.
I just, in taking stock of my own life, we've been doing so much. And I think one of the things that, like, if someone has been listening to our show from the beginning, you could actually see how we're sort of doing that. And an example and point is, like, we used to have, like, I remember some episodes where we had 6, 7, 8 news stories and we're trying to comment on all of those. And we've just sort of reached a point where we're like, this is getting to be quite overwhelming. It's good to know about all this stuff, be somewhat familiar, but to be able to comment on everything. And we've sort of consciously and in some cases subconsciously, I think, made some decisions of, well, let's pull back a little bit. What stories are interesting to us? What stories sort of actually give us a little bit of life that talk about more than just like an X-Wing's engines or like the Death Star like personnel, and those things are good, but I think you can easily get overwhelmed by it. You can fixate. You can make it so important that you kind of belittle little like other aspects of your life. And so I think one of the things that I need to look for is joy disappearing. Like, wow, I'm not enjoying this. So that's one thing. And it's happened occasionally with the whole Star Wars, Unmistakably Star Wars thing. But the other thing is I kind of get wrapped up in time. I need to be very careful with my time. And when I notice, like, there's some moments where I'm working on Unmistakably Star Wars about 20 hours a week, plus about 50 hours for my teaching job. That's 70 hours right there. A week, and I just need to not push that 20 hours. I could easily go 30. Easily. Maybe even beyond that. And with reading and watching and note taking and like it can get overwhelming. And when am I going to give time to my kids? My wife. Like I need to spend time with them. And I think a lot of us that are listening, we're sort of in the same boat. We love Star Wars. It's amazing. It speaks to so many wonderful things. But there's a line you got to walk.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to be very careful. I don't know. Those are just some thoughts.
No, and I think that's valid. And I think that regardless of, here's one of the things that I've learned over the past year since we've been doing this. Yeah. There can be super fans that are dedicated, diehard super fans who don't know all the technical aspects of, you know, the E11 blaster, whatever, you know.
Sure.
But regardless of that, what I have seen, what I've personally experienced is that, whether you're doing this is kind of like hobby squared, you know, because I mean, like, it's hobby plus.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that's just like good and healthy and feeding you brought up, are you still getting and reaping joy from it? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a constant question to ask.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, like, after talking with Jeff Brown, like, it's okay to say that it's not if it's not.
Yeah.
Or to even be so wise as to see, like, if you're feeling overwhelmed, to know how to be proactive and push back.
Yeah, and you makes me wonder. I think there's some fans that they can hear all the spoilers and all that stuff and then roll into the movie and be wildly entertained.
Yeah.
But I always wonder, because I'm one of those types of people, I'll take the spoilers in and kind of be aware of those things. And, you know, not only for Unmistakably Star Wars, but just for my own fandom. But I'm always intrigued by the fans that are able to, like, have self-control and say, you know what? I'm not going to watch any trailers. I'm not going to watch any commercials. I'm not even going to look at any character stuff unless I happen to see it on the wall somewhere.
Right.
And I'm just going to walk in. I love Star Wars as much as the person that knows all the details. But I'm just going to walk in virginal. Like, I'm just going to walk in not knowing all this stuff.
Right.
And I've always wondered, what is that experience like for those people? Like, those people that saw the Force Awakens like that didn't see a trailer.
Right.
You know, they did exist.
Right.
And purposefully so.
Right.
And you wonder, like, what was their joy like in that moment?
Right.
Fascinating stuff. We need to try to find someone, have them on the show, talk about that.
We can try to do that.
We can try.
There's surely they exist.
I'm sure
they exist. What are, as we get close to landing the plane, what are some of the strategies that you have used? Mm-hmm. You mentioned, like, grad school and stuff. So when things start to spin out of control, what are some of the things that you can do to say, okay, there are things in place that I know if I get to that DEFCON, it's time to reassess, reevaluate, shut things down, whatever.
A few things, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm actually, in some ways, thankful that my wife is not a diehard Star Wars fan. She loves Star Wars.
Yeah.
She likes it, but she's not reading all the novels or anything. Like, I mean, she's not getting comics. She's not.
Right.
She'll go see the movies. She saw The Force Awakens like 3 times.
Yeah.
She loved it.
Yeah.
So it's not that she doesn't like, but she has a healthy enough distance in some ways that she's able to see me a little clearer than I might be seeing myself and call me on it. Like, Jeremy, like, husband, you're getting a little too out of control. You're spending way too much time on this. Your son Samuel wants to spend some time with you.
Yeah.
So I think one is having someone in your life that can speak that into you. I'm not saying, like, if your spouse or your girlfriend, boyfriend, or best buddy or whatever, if they're as big a fan as yours, those are awesome relationships.
Right.
But I think it's also good to maybe have someone in your life that can kind of speak some truth and help you see things that you might not be seeing. So I think that's one.
Yeah.
I think the other is truly physical distance. You know, when I was struggling in grad school, I was 3 years into a 4-year program. And I just kind of came to a realization, like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's killing my joy. It's killing my love of the subject matter.
Yeah.
It's killing everything. Like, my life was just kind of in shambles. And, you know, it was just studying nonstop. It was like class and then 12 hours a day study. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I literally got away. I got in my car, drove. My parents at the time lived in rural Alabama.
Yeah.
And had a house out in the middle of nowhere. And I literally drove from St. Louis, Missouri, where I was in grad school, drove there and spent some time kind of disconnected from grad school, from my life in St. Louis, and just spent some time out in the country and just got quiet.
Yeah.
And sort of rethought what I was doing while I was in grad school, and I think with Star Wars, maybe distance will be good, you know, just like, I just need to get away from this. You know what? I'm going to put the books on the shelf for a few days.
Yeah.
I'm going to put these comics up. And I actually have done that with the comics recently. I love comic books. I've been a collector since I was a second grader.
Wow.
And recently, I would say within the last month, I mean, there's a few things that I'll read.
Yeah.
But I just took them and just set them aside. I go, you know what? My job's busy. My family needs me. I'm reading Ahsoka. I'm watching Rebels.
Right.
I'm writing these articles. I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Comics are going to have to be set aside for a little bit.
Yeah.
And when I have, as a teacher, I'm afforded a summer break, and I'll maybe tackle them, then, and read up on stuff or over Thanksgiving or Christmas, when I have some time. But I literally took them, and when they come in the mail or whatever, I just take them, set them aside.
Yeah.
And so those are some things like distance, physical, like just push them away. What about you? What are some things that you
I think just acknowledging the fact that like sometimes we need a diversion from our diversion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for me, it's interesting that you said like you took a road trip, because when I was, I don't know, probably 6 weeks from finishing my graduate school, I'm just like, I'm out of here. And this is how crazy I got, because I did my grad school on the West Coast, and I literally bought a plane ticket, flew to Chicago.
Really?
Went to a concert, snuck backstage.
I didn't know this story.
Oh, yeah.
You snuck backstage?
Snuck backstage. Here's one thing I learned. If you act like you belong there, people believe that you belong there.
Wow.
Met the band, and then went back to my seat, enjoyed the concert, flew home the next morning.
Who'd you see?
Styx.
That's awesome, dude.
Right, dude?
So you flew to Chicago, saw Styx.
Yeah, snuck in the side. Well, so I didn't even really, I did sneak, but I didn't sneak. So I had like second row seats, and the usher came down. It was like probably, I don't know, half hour before the show.
Yeah.
And I said, hey man, I flew in from California for this show. Can you like get me backstage? He's like, no man, sorry, I can't. But the artist entrance is outside around the corner. I was like, well, all right then. So I went outside, went down, and like there's all like, all the roadies and the techs and stuff outside, and people smoking and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, my heart's just like pounding.
Yeah, yeah.
And I go, okay, you can do this, right? Yeah. It's kind of like when Finn was like marching.
Yeah.
And so like I opened the door to the artist entrance, and I went. So I was backstage, and I'm looking everywhere, and there were so many swinging people back there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't see anybody from the band. I'm just like, okay. So I'm starting to walk like across the area. So it would have been across backstage. And it probably helps a little bit if you're like, 6'3" like I am. So like most people don't want to like make eye contact with you or whatever. And I'm just like looking around, looking like I own the place.
Yeah.
And making eye contact with people and kind of like nodding my head and stuff. And they're nodding back and waving at me. And I'm searching everywhere and getting like all the way across the backstage. Couldn't find the band anywhere.
Oh, man.
But there's this stairwell. And I'm just like, well, why not?
Yeah.
And so I start climbing the stairwell. And I get to, it has the landings. And so I got to like between the second and third floor on the landing. And I hear voices. I'm just like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
It's the band. And so I like take a deep breath, dude. I'm just like, okay, you can do this. And so I start walking up there, and I'm trying to look all confident and stuff. And I get up there, and they're looking at me. They're just like, clearly this guy does not belong up here.
What the hell is he doing
exactly.
here?
Like security is losing their job after this one. And so I just go up to him, and I go, hey, and I introduce myself, and took out my hand for a handshake, and then it happened. He gave me like the limp handshake.
Yeah.
No, dude, dreams since childhood wrecked.
Could not shake your hand well.
Couldn't shake the hand. I'm just like, okay, maybe it's because he's a keyboardist. I don't know. But anyway, had a good time. Got a good story out of it.
Sweet, man.
Went back, enjoyed the concert. Flew back, knocked out those last 6 weeks of grad school.
That's brilliant, dude.
Right?
Yeah, I did the same thing. Went home. Nothing as epic as that. You walked around in woods and forests, in Alabama, and just rethought, like, what am I doing? And I actually went back, made some pretty big decisions, and ended up months later getting a gig teaching. And that's what I'm doing today. And I literally did not expect to be a teacher.
Wow.
I was doing something completely different, and it just sort of, everything changed on that dime right then.
Wow.
And so, going back to just Star Wars fandom obsession, I think obsession's another a red flag, dude. I think if you get so much to the point where it's every aspect of your life is swirling around it.
Right.
I think in some ways it's good. It's good to like have a Star Wars tattoo and like, you know, Star Wars t-shirts and make Star Wars references. It's great to be a fan. I'm not like poo-pooing any of that.
No.
But I am saying, you know, if it's obsession to the point where your relationships falter and your job might falter, yeah, you got to be careful, man.
Balance.
You got to balance.
Balance.
And that's what the Jedi would teach.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's fair. So yeah, I think that's Styx. Is there any other bands that you would die to go see backstage? Because I know you're a Rush fan.
Oh yeah, I'm a Rush fan. That like are present today or like just
you could literally go see today.
I would like if Floyd got back together.
Yeah,
that would be pretty epic.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I can't think of anybody.
No, I've seen Rush and stuff, so I mean, I crossed that off the list.
No,
would have loved to have seen Skynyrd in their day.
Ooh,
yeah,
that would have been a good one.
Yeah.
Well, anything else about Star Wars?
No, I'm going to take a break.
Okay, let's take a break. Hey, thanks so much for listening to Unmistakably Star Wars. It was a joy to have you guys listening to us, and as always, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at UnmistakablySW. Hey, check us out online at unmistakably.starwars.com. Keep an eye out for Star Wars on Tap that will be coming out this week with Andrew in Belfast. And then also, we'll announce soon what the Force Discourse will be about. And also, you can find our Rebels Reaction episode. It drops every Monday. So, thanks for listening, and as always, may the Force be with you.
Thanks for listening to Unmistakably Star Wars. Join us again next week for more news and insights like only we can bring you. Until then, lock the door and hope they don't have blasters.